Pilots, comrades, ladies and lords of the RC Round Table, welcome to MickeyB RC. I am, of course, MickeyB, and thank you so much for following along. All your likes, your comments, love you guys' comments. Of course, your subscriptions and continuing to support us. It's why we do it. HSD L-39. Yoda has had 13 flights on this L-39 out of the box. It's a remarkable jet. It does have some things which you need to consider and some setup tips. Down below is a whole bunch of chapters. So Yoda's going to talk about what he's done to his L-39. Stick around. There's a full flight video and exciting news from the MickeyB RC kingdom. So yeah, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Yoda.
Cool. HSD.
Yeah.
L39.
L39, loving it. Had 13 flights now.
13 great flights, did?
Yeah.
Yep.
Really learnt a lot about the jet,
yeah.
And enjoying the flying, really enjoying it. I've got it sorted out really nicely now.
Yeah.
A few little things that are still happening with it. We'll let you guys know about it. Specifically, I want to talk about the setup. Out of the box, I tried to set it up exactly as HSD described as far as the throws go. Hooking up my receiver, I'm obviously using Jetty. Hooking up my receiver, which is a Rex 12 assist, direct into the MFC. So you've already seen the HSD MFC, the multifunction control board. A little bit of a pain. So obviously it's been designed for Futaba and even set up the throws and all sorts of things, the centering of the controls and everything. It seems to it wants to do the S-Bus thing. Plugging's still an option, but it is a bit of a pain. You've got to really hunt around. It's awkward to get in under it. I spent a bit of time fiddling around and trying to get it sorted. Put it all together. It was all working, operating. I had a pretty good program sorted for the radio, something basic. And I went to start working on the flaps and it was just horrendous. Spent hours, probably 2 straight hours, trying to get flaps to actually work together. So they came down evenly in first stage and then came down evenly in second stage. And I couldn't get it done. It literally wouldn't let me do it. With sub trim, you change a sub trim on one flap, it would alter then not only the neutral position but flap 1 and flap 2, and it was very, very difficult to get them to operate. I tried every parameter in there I could do over and over. I even tried control linkage changes and all sorts of things. In the end I went, nah, pulled them out of the direct plug MFC and found the servo leads out of the MFC and plugged them directly into my Rex 12. Programmed the radio to accept 2 flaps, 2 ailerons. I put the ailerons in there too, because at full flap I found that straight wing jets just love having a little bit of up aileron. They call it butterfly on Jetty radios. So when you bring the flap in, the ailerons, both ailerons come up slightly and it really settles it down into a very nice high alpha approach onto touchdown, and it doesn't drop a wing. It gets really stable. I just love that. So it gave me programmability. So guys, my first tip, if you're going to plug anything other than a Futaba into it, you might want to consider doing what I'm doing. Go straight, find those servo leads. It'd be great to have servos actually on the end of the leads going into the MFC, have them named. Left aileron, right aileron, left flap, right flap, and it would make life so much quicker. Anyway, just a tip. The other thing, the setup of the control surfaces. So the book stated some pretty coarse setup, and it said 30% expo, and they were quite big aileron travel, a lot more than that. Double, almost 3 times that movement. And my first flight, I had to switch to a very low rate. I wasn't really impressed. It was extremely touchy straight off the deck, even in the pitch. Everything was just coarse except for the rudder, and the rudder was quite nice. So my recommendation is make sure, if you're going to go by the book, get your C or G right, and I'll show you that in a second. So I know my C or G is right, but tame down, have a setting where you can easily flick an expo and a far less rate on your ailerons, and your elevator, to some extent, just dull it down a little bit, get some expo in there, 30%, you'll have a much nicer flying experience straight out of the box. It was very, very touchy, first flight. So it was no problem. I landed it fine. We got it sorted out. We went flying. So all the linkages on this machine, if you have a look down in here, they originally, that was much longer. I've chopped a bit off. It was right down here, and it was working from the outermost hole, so it was extremely coarse, and it means you have to actually program your radio to dull it right down to about 40% of the throw. They're saying in the book 80%, so I don't agree. I like to make servos travel their full extent, so if you have a look at that now, I'm getting 100% travel just by doing a geometry change, and sure, you have to cut a little bit of foam out to make it all work. And because of their control horns, just be careful, guys. If you're going up in the holes, make sure you go on the other side of the horn where it's flat, because otherwise the ball doesn't connect to a flat surface and it binds the linkage up.
Right.
So be very, very careful if you're moving anything to double check, put it on the flat side, and away you go. So that's my recommendation for the ailerons. For the elevator, I found some really interesting things when I put it together. Sub-trim had been worked on in the MFC. Now, just backing up a little bit, I have this still working through the MFC, the elevators. I haven't direct plugged them, and I found I could sub-trim them to get them reasonably even, but one was sub-trimmed so violently one way and the other way that the control horns from the servos from side to side were literally like that, and the linkage at the factory had been wound out on the one that was further back. So far it was only 2 turns from the end and very flexible. So I did away with that. You can see I've put 440 linkages on there and strong ball links. I just like, it's solid as, because the servos are extremely good. They're a very strong servo. I just like having that connection. And again, I got the geometry in the position where I've got 100% servo travel and really good centering. It comes straight back to center. Previously it was back at 40-50% and it wasn't centering great. It was all just a little bit funky. So they're really good things to look at, guys. Look at all your linkages. Overall, 95% of this airframe is sweet. It flies rock solid. It's beautiful scale look. It really performs well if we just focus on these minor issues and get them fixed. What else did we find? Undercarriage.
Undercarriage, yep.
Interesting times with the undercarriage. The nose wheel, the way the geometry is with the suspension, so I'll push down on it. It would go over center at that point there, and the wheel would come right around and almost touch the underbelly here, and it would get stuck there because it was in a moment arm that was incorrect and it had no outer spring here, and I've obviously added the outer spring. Highly recommend doing that. Even if you're on hard stand, we found that even applying brakes when you're taxiing, it would nose dive down and it wouldn't come back up, and you'd have to try and take off with the nose down and it would leap into the air and look a little bit weird.
Yeah.
This is the cheapest, quickest, simplest mod. I would strongly recommend HSD if you're listening. I hope they are. Just add a spring in there at the factory, and if you don't, put the spring in for somebody to, if they want to add it,
To install it.
Yeah. I've left the undercarriage otherwise stock standard, and I've just done a tiny little bit of glue just to stop split pins and C clips and things from falling off, which I do with all my undercarriage anyway, because we operate off pretty rough ground. But it's lovely now. The suspension on the back is quite nice too. I'm thinking I might just do away with the rubber seals in there because the grease is very sticky, and sometimes you'll stop and it won't come back up. Yeah. It's very slow to come back up. But at this stage, I'm going to leave it and just keep testing it. It could be just it was a cold morning this morning.
It was, yeah.
The gear doors, no end of trouble. The inside, there's one door on one side. The servo is actually operating it at the back of the door because they had no room to put servos anywhere else. The other side, it's at the front of the door and it doesn't come open in the air, but it blows open on every flight, the other one. And I tried to fix it with putting magnets in the front corners, which you've got footage of, and it still hasn't fixed it. Also, I found that hinges were falling off because the plastic glue or the method of binding the hinge isn't great. And also, the hinges, if you just turn them around in the factory, on the side that's the critical side, which is the outer part of the door, or the front part of the door, the hinge is round the wrong way. It's actually got the slight gap where there's no hinge, and that's the flexible part.
Right.
If they just simply flipped it over, they would have had the strong part of the hinge at the front, and it's caused all this flex. So my solution after all this hassle, after 13 flights, is probably going to take those doors off altogether, and then just put plates there with just cutouts for the wheels to go through, and just have no doors on the inside. The outer doors are fixed. They're on the struts. They're great.
Yeah.
The front door was a little funky when it came out of the box. It was bent the wrong way. So when it closed, it had like an air scoop, and I put a bit of aluminium on it and bent it back, and now it closes properly and it's fine. But it's a very fast model, so you want to make sure things are going to hang on.
Yeah.
Because I still haven't been flying at full throttle yet. Okay, talking about the flaps, about control surfaces. The geometry underneath there, you can see that the actual horn is nearly halfway through the chord of the flap. I don't know what the thinking was there. They've obviously had some engineering thought about it, but it creates quite a flappy, unstable geometry position. It doesn't seem to affect it in the air. I'm quite pleased about the characteristics of this. It locks into a nice smooth flight. It's not wandering all over the place. So whatever's going on aerodynamically, it's lifting the flap up as it's flying, and it's doing okay at this stage. But I might look at something down the track there. And this servo's got a little bit funky because it's obviously under load all the time. It starts to jitter and jump under load. So I'll probably look at replacing that flap servo, both of them, and changing some geometry there. It's not a biggie, guys. Certainly not going to stop me from flying it, that's for sure. The other thing is the fuel lines. I'll just turn it off so it's not buzzing in our face. So 2 buttons, turn off. The fuel lines have plugs in them, but it's very thin. It's like the old style fuel tubing, and it's very awkward to get your plugs out. I'm going to change them to Tygon, like this one here, a nice size Tygon, which will fit this a lot better. I might even put a tap on it, just so you can turn it off, then put the plug in after the tap, or before the tap I should say, so you've got a backup in case the ball leaks. But yeah, for both smoke and fuel, that's awkward, and you're always really reefing on these things and getting fuel flicked everywhere and smoke oil flicked everywhere. It's not very comfortable. I would recommend changing them to something easier, which I will do shortly. The smoke system is brilliant. You'll see in the footage, it just looks so good. It's as good as any of the major big jets that are out there that I've flown. And it has a lot of presence in the sky.
So just on the smoke, what is your formula? Some guys out there will know. I mean, you can use diesel. You hear of things like brake fluid and that. So what's your formula?
So at the moment I'm using proper smoke oil, a commercial one. I can't remember the name of it, but it's just a commercial smoke oil, and I cut it 50%, sometimes 40% with the smoke oil, just to keep the cost down with diesel. And it just seems to really whiten the smoke up and make it nice and thick, and hasn't got that sort of a browny grey colour to it.
Yeah.
And it's working extremely well.
No, it does, and especially on days like today where there's hardly any clouds, it just pops.
Yep, love it. And there was one other thing. Oh, we glued the fin on. I did. 4 screws through quite a good mounting bracket, and it's got big carbon dowels that come down through here. So it is quite a good system they've got, but I found it did have some flex, and I want to start pushing this jet at high speed, knife edge, hesitation rolls. I don't want this coming off. So I just put some Gorilla Glue in there, a small amount because it expands out. You don't want it pouring out everywhere. And it stiffened it up considerably. If I have to change a servo, it's just simply pop the servo out, cut the lead, resolder a new servo in. It takes 2 seconds. I really don't care about that. And I don't think this servo is going to let go. They're very strong. One thing I will say to the factory, please HSD, start thinking about serviceability of these jets, because they're going to last a long time. The airframe's strong. They're great flying machines. You've got awesome undercarriage, great brakes, everything's good. But the servos are glued in. So if you want to change servos, you've got to do major surgery, and you risk. I looked at the elevator. I was thinking I might pop them out and have a look at where the horn position is on the spline and see if I can change that and get them more even, because one was quite off to the other. And I couldn't get it out, and I didn't want to actually pull hard on it and pull the foam out of this top side. because it's very thin in there, and it's just all glue. So something for the factory to think about for if they're developing future aircraft. You know, you can live with it, but hell, why not make it better?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know whether you guys can see, like, the paintwork on this thing is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And it's quite a stiff foam. It's quite a dense foam as well.
Very dense foam, and you'll see I put leading edge tape. I love this thick mylar tape. They call it tarpaulin repair tape, and it's UV stabilized. It sticks really well. Makes the leading edge really hard, and I like the look of it actually too.
Yeah.
The paint is great, as you say. It's super stiff. There's so much inside airframe work going on in there. It's not just foam. We like to say it's a composite model with a foam skin.
Yeah.
Because there's so much going on in there you can't see. There's carbon, there's timber, there's aluminium, there's all sorts of plastic components that all form this really rigid structure. So yeah, don't doubt how strong it is in the air. It's awesome, and it's holding up to me transporting it quite well. I'm careful. I've got padding through my car, so it's always sitting on padding. I've got wings that I can put padding all around the wings. You know, there's foam everywhere, but once you get used to living with not denting them, you can survive for hundreds of flights with these things. I think they're robust as anything.
So speaking of which, what do you have your timer set for your X92?
7 minutes. It's a 1.8 litre fuel tank, 7 minutes, and I'm landing with what you see, the fuel there. That was 7 minutes on that last flight.
Okay.
And there's a good 20% of fuel left in there.
Right.
I've just got telemetry thanks to Phil from Jet Products Australia. Thank you very much. Telemetry coming through to my transmitter now with a percentage readout which maps the pump. It's a really simple system to use, and I'm just tuning that in now, so I can do away with the timer.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, 7 minute machine, 7 minutes of fun, and the smoke is quite good. It's got 750 mil of smoke oil.
Okay.
And that's plenty on and off the smoke. It gives a really nice show, and I cannot wait to fly formation with you, Mikkel.
That'd be great.
We're going to do some great smoke passes. It's going to be so cool.
So that basically fuel flow meter is kind of a new addition to
the Decoy range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what it does is it measures how much fuel is coming from the fuel pump, but you program how big your tank is.
Correct. Yeah.
And then it basically just works down from that. So it's kind of like a fuel gauge meter. So
yeah, very accurate too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow, I'm super impressed. I know, of course, we didn't mention before, we get brakes on this one. We don't need them here in Australia, unlike you guys in the US, but it's nice to have, and it doesn't, I mean, it seems to track really nice with brakes on. We saw that.
Full brake. You can just slam the brakes on, they don't lock, and it just tracks dead straight.
Which is what you want.
And so whatever the technology is in that MFC, congratulations. Really, really good. It's probably the nicest jet I've flown as far as brakes work.
Yeah.
The air brakes are there. They're more of a tricky, fun thing. Occasionally I might pop them out just to go, oh, look at that. But you really don't need the air brakes.
No.
But overall, terrific jet. If you're thinking about a first turbine, highly recommend this.
Yeah, it's such a docile flyer as well. Comes in really nicely.
I like to surprise myself. I'll take off sometimes and I'll come right off the power to get the gear up so it's not stressing out the gear doors and things. And it gets really slow and it never, ever looks like it's in peril of spinning in. You can just push the nose down a bit and it flies away. It's a lovely trainer.
Really, really
and
good.
fast.
Yeah.
Far out. I can't wait to open it up.
Yeah, what would you say you've been at 80%? Like the
80% was probably maximum I've been so far.
That's quick.
It really gets wound up fast.
Yeah.
And people commented at Casino at the jet meet there. I was chasing a F-16 at 1/5 scale. Overtook him pretty quickly and he said, that's a rocket. No, look at my throttle, it's not really pegged.
Yeah.
So it is a wonderful thing.
No, that's brilliant.
Yep.
Well, thanks very much for that, Yoda. Awesome. HSD L-39 Albatros.
Great.
Cool.
Thanks. Thank you, mate.
Go on. You know you want to take up with smoke on.
Okay.
Even the cows are interested. Look. Lovely. Oh, yes. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
thanks Yoda for those great tips there on the L39. And you know, it doesn't just apply to the L39, it applies to any aircraft. You know, you as pilot in command are responsible for your aircraft, the safety of yourself, the aircraft property, those around you. So take the time to set it up and you'll get a much more rewarding experience. And it's good to know, it's good practice to go through the whole aircraft. You know, the factories do a great job in assembling these and testing them, but not everything's always going to be perfect. So don't rely on the factory completely to make sure that everything's set up, especially when it's already pre-hinged and it's all the linkages are installed. So you know, make sure you test them thoroughly and check what you're doing. So if you are playing at home here in Australia and you're wanting to purchase one of these HSD L39s or even any other HSD product, make sure you go to ozstarsmodel.com. The link will be in the description below for the L39, but go check them out. Have a chat to Steve. He's a really nice guy, really knowledgeable, and he carries products and will be able to sort you out. The other thing is the X90 that Yoda runs in his L39. If you're wanting to purchase the Zykoy products, the link will be in the description below for Jet Products Australia. Phil, he's really switched on as well, and he's helped me with this bad boy, with the X45, and I just made him this today. So good. So good. Really happy with that. Anyway, another product we're looking to review very soon is another foam composite model. A lot like the HSD L-39, but it is a different shape and it is a different manufacturer. And I have to say, so I have like 5 favorite jets, and this would be probably number 2. I've always loved this jet. I've grown up watching these jets from Air Force bases in New Zealand, and I'm just so rapt that we were given this opportunity to do a review on the aircraft itself, but also what runs the aircraft in terms of power plant. It's a new thing that's they're wanting to test. Again, I can't say too much more, but you got to stick around for that. You got to hit that bell so you don't miss out on that. Anyway, guys, I'll leave it there from Yoda and I. Thanks very much for watching. Happy flying, and we'll see you at the field. Thank you for watching, and please remember to subscribe to the MickeyBRC channel and click here to see more videos. Oh, come on, pick something.